Welcome back, fishing friends, to another adventure. Or I should say, welcome back, fishing friends, to the worldwide headquarters of the Pinhook Fishing Club. Got the sign back there that my sister got for me, custom made. So I'm keeping an eye on some of these football games going on. Ooh, boy, the Bills. That was a big win. Packers are leading the Broncos. Man, some big games going on. All right, I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fans. It's okay to hate and make fun of me. We deal with it all the time. People are just jealous, especially when we were winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl there for a while. Born and raised in Texas, so of course I'm a Cowboys fan. All right, so last time I talked about the fiasco at the dance as part of the jig tying story time. This week I've got a story for you that's it's funny, but it's also crazy at the same time. All right, but first let me get into this jig. This is one of these Berkeley Fusion 19. It's a 1/4 ounce. Man, I love these for tying jigs. Sometimes I'll use these Smeltonators. Actually, most of the time I use the Smeltonators from Northland Tackle. So we're just gonna tie a few here and have some fun doing that. Just so you guys know, I'm not an expert jig tire. I just do it for fun. So by no means do I claim to know what I'm doing here. I just have fun with it. And as a part of this, I'll just tell some stories about some of the chaos I've had being a school teacher. People are always asking me to tell the stories. What's the worst thing I've been through? What are some crazy stuff you've seen? And guys, I've seen a ton of crazy stuff in all the years that I've been teaching. All right. But first things first, one of the original Bass After Dark hats that my buddy Ken Duke gave me while we were at the Classic when they came down to Fort Worth this past year. So I'm appreciative of this. But you can get yours now, and t-shirts. I've got the t-shirt in there. I'll wear that some other time. But you can get this stuff now at Achigan.com. I think Achigan is a Native American word for bass, perhaps, or for fish. I can't remember the whole story, but anyway, go check that out. Go check it. They got all kinds of good stuff. Anyway, thanks a lot, Ken, for the hat from back in the day. It was back in March. We had such a great time there at the Classic. We went and saw the Ray Scott story, Dreamcatcher. All right, let's get to it. Where's my other color? Here it is. We're going to do red with this one. So I use this kind of craft fur stuff. I always forget to hold this stuff up in front of the camera. We'll just get a pinch of that. You don't need to be super perfect with this stuff. Remember, the fish, you want things to look natural and look good, but honestly, the water's murky. A lot of times the fish are, they're just reacting. So you don't have to be a perfectionist with it. What is going on here? Am I losing this? Yep. I need to get a new vise. This is just one of these cheapo generic ones I got at Cabela's. Man, that's the other thing is the Cabela's in my areas here, they've all made the full transition now to Bass Pro Shops. That's their name. So, I don't know. I'll still call it Cabela's. It's just a habit. Just like the Biffle bug. They've changed the name on that. Yum did. But I'm still going to call it the Biffle bug. Anyway, all right, let's get rolling here. So, this next story, guys. This is one of the funniest things. I mean, the chaos, there's just so much of it over the years. Yeah, sorry if the camera rattles or you hear banging on the table. It's because my feet are hitting down here. Plus, when I put my hands down. Okay, so let me set the scene. I'm in a class. It's got like 27 kids in it. And this is like after lunch, like 2 o'clock. 7th period, maybe. We had 8 periods. So I'd usually teach 5 classes, some years 6, depending on how things rolled up. So I was teaching 7th grade. This is when I was in Amarillo at a very nice school. And 7th and 8th grade campus. Yeah, sorry guys, my feet are just clanking down there. Anyway, so what happened was we were in class and I was going over an important topic. I was teaching history. We were having a discussion. They had to read a text and then we were going to talk about it. Well, while the kids were reading the information, I had my questions ready to go. And all of a sudden I just kept hearing this talking and whispering back and forth between 2 girls. They sat towards the back. I had my room split. The class, one half this side, one half this side, so I could walk this giant aisle in the middle. And then the rows were like this. Seats of 3s. So 3, 6, 9, 12, all the way down. I had that big aisle I could walk through. Well, what happened was I kept hearing this rustling back there, and these 2 girls were having a conversation. They were like animated. And I was like, ladies, what's going on over there? We're working on stuff, and it's just you're nonstop making racket back there talking. Well, one of the girls, her name was, we'll just call her Kenzie. Kenzie, short for Mackenzie, was like, well, we're done. We're done talking. And her friend Elizabeth, let me get this going here. Ooh, I'm going to have to pinch this down just a little. So Elizabeth says, she apologized. She said, we're sorry. We're just, it's just stuff going on. Anyway, so we keep rolling along. And then I notice on the other side of the room that there was some shuffling. One of the boys just, I don't know, something was going on. And I could tell now that it was like going across both sides of the room. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? The girls start mumbling again. And they're still animated with their discussion. And so I'm like, man, what is, I got to do something here. So I walk back there to where they're sitting. I'm like, ladies, you got to be quiet. I don't know what this is, but we got too much to do here. We got to start answering these questions, so knock it off. So I go back up to the front and I pose the first question, cause and effect, this and that and the other. And as we're answering it, I have a kid volunteer and they give their answer. And I look over and the girls are still talking, and they're, one of them, Kenzie's like, I can tell that she's trying to make a point. So I stop everybody and I'm saying, all right, okay, ladies, I've asked you several times now to knock it off. What's the deal? And Kenzie finally says, I'm sorry, it's just we're dealing with some drama. And her friend's like, yeah, it's It's over now. We think we got it sorted out. And I'm like, well, what's the deal? Well, Kenzie says so and so on the other side of the room is asking me out through my friend Elizabeth. And I'm like, huh? And I don't know how he could get that. I guess they were using sign language or, mouthing across. And I was like, what? And Kenzie's like, yeah, so-and-so keeps asking me out, but he's having Liz do it. And I keep telling Liz, I'm not going to go out with somebody who isn't man enough to come ask me face to face. And I was like, whoa, everything's unfolding now. And I was like, okay. And she said, I'm not going to go out with somebody if they're not man enough to come up and ask me face to face. I'm not going to do it through a text. I'm not going to do it through friends. I know what I'm worth. They need to come up and ask me face to face. Now get this girl was not a snob. She was not rude. She was just a regular, kid, a good kid. And I was thinking to myself, wow, she's got standards. And other girls in the class were like, everybody in the whole class didn't know what to think. So one girl said, I'd be too embarrassed if a guy came up and asked me, I'd rather have him do it. So now we're stuck in this discussion about how to ask somebody out, what's comfortable, what's the etiquette. And a couple other girls chime in. They're like, yeah, I see what you mean. I'd rather have somebody come up and ask for them. That way it's not awkward, it's not embarrassing. And then a boy says, well, if you're going to have a friend do that, then how are you going to have lunch or go hang out with the dude once you're going out with him if it's awkward just to talk to them, to ask them out? And then they have this rationale, well, it's different because once you're going out, then you're going out and everything's cool. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what on earth is going on here? So I'm like, okay, let's just drop it, knock it off. I said, I told the girl, I said, understand you're upset about it, but let's just save that for another time. You guys know I don't want any drama in this classroom. And then I said, it is cool that you have standards and that's how you feel about it. And, this just isn't the time or the place to talk about it. So it's just, kind of skating through it. In the meantime, I look over on the other side, and I looked at him a couple of times. The dude, he was like one of our big-time football players. He was, just a popular kid. And he had slumped down in his seat so much. I mean, he was just like melting. It was so embarrassing for him. And you could tell he wanted to get out of there. So he had his head down. And of course, the dudes next to him, some of them were his buddies and some were just random kids, were like giving him a hard time. They're like doing the ooh, and there was so much going on with it. So that whole thing was just drama central. And in one way it was kind of fun. It was funny to see, but it was also a train wreck for that kid. I felt bad for him. But I mean, she made it point blank clear how it was going to be if somebody was going to ask her out. Now, of course, within the next passing period, everybody's going to know how she feels about that. And I mean, she was a popular kid, a really nice kid. So the whole thing was kind of surprising to me. She wasn't trying to be rude on purpose. She was just making her point. Hey, there's no way I'm going out with somebody if they can't come up and ask me face to face. And anyway, so that was one time where, like, it unfolded right there, and it's one of those ones, guys, where you hear people say this all the time. Oh, you had to have been there to see it or to hear it or whatever. That's one where if you would have been in there, the tension in the room was just so thick. And part of it is because the kids knew I was getting agitated with them. The girls, like, because they were good, really good kids, and they just kept going on and on. It was starting to drive me nuts because I had stuff I had to get done for the kids. So anyway, as that rolled on, the tension started to build because, of course, the kids want to see, what I'm going to do. The kids love to see somebody get in trouble. A lot of times, if you do it one-on-one, talk to them one-on-one, like in the hallway or just over by their desk, that's the best way to do it. Because remember, you don't want to embarrass them. You got to remember, if a teacher gets onto you or whatever in front of the whole class, it can be like a tough deal for them. Now, some of these hardline old school people will be like, yeah, man, that's, we had to deal with that when we were growing up. It's just how it is. You got to toughen up. I agree. Sorry, guys. Amazon delivery. So you want to try to kind of handle things, like when I was in school, they're like, toughen up. That's just how it is. You gotta, teacher gets on to you, but we try to keep things, calm, I guess you could say. But so what happened? Well, as soon as class ended, that dude was just zipped out of there. I mean, and the deal was, I didn't check with him to see if he was okay, because that would have been like throwing gasoline on it, because I knew he was just trying to get out of there. And so he got out of there. The girls were talking it up. They apologized. Kinsey was like, look, Mr. K, I'm really sorry that this happened. And, it just happened. And I was like, well, yeah, I was wondering what was going on over there. Because normally y'all are, have things pretty much under control. I never have to worry about you about getting in trouble in here. And which was the truth, they were outstanding students. But sometimes it's just things happen, and they happen right then and there. You just got to deal with it. But it was a learning experience for not just the dude, but a bunch of the other boys that were there. Now think about it. Think of the long-term ramifications. Some of the boys are going to be like, I'm never going to ask somebody out ever, if that's, how it's going to be. Or some of them are just going to be like, I don't care. I'm still going to ask them out by texting. So think of the ripple effect for long-term, like for the rest of their lives, or at least for junior high. High school, I'm sure, would probably chill out a little bit. They would mature through and they'd realize, oh yeah, that was dumb to try to do things by texting. But, it can have a long-term effect on people. So, and for me as a teacher, I was done with it and already on to the next thing. Well, so did he ever go out with her? No. He tried to slink away, and that was the end of it. So, did anybody else try to ask her out? I don't know. Sometimes you see them walking down the halls together or whatever, but I think that was it for. She didn't go out with anybody for a while, that I ever knew. But stuff like that in our business, it's them unless you see it, or sometimes I'll tell you, oh, so and so asked me out, and it's exciting, and some of that stuff about. Sometimes most of the time you don't. It's her, it's her deal. So she went on with. They were fine. It was the dude that just got wrecked. And, of course, all his buddies heard about it. And then I'm sure the discussion was, man, who's gonna ask her out? With that. Now, think about back when you were in junior high, somebody that you went out with. Did you ever ask him out face-to-face, or did you have a buddy do it? So, for me, there was a couple times, and I always had just my friends do it. That was just, and then if it agreed and worked out, then, you know, we kind of met in a spot and talked about it, and then it was fine. But I mean, so check that out, guys. Look at that Berkeley Fusion 19 quarter ounce. Look at that hair jig. If you're interested in buying one of these, because I'll have a bunch of leftovers, just let me know and I can sell them. Anyway, so that was the deal for that day, how the drama unfolded in class. You just never know how it's all going to go down until it happens, but everybody, for the most part, was respectful. But anyway, all right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Hey, until next time, I'll see you then for the next jig tying session and storytelling. I've got a good one about a situation in class that nobody knew how to handle, including myself. But the kids taught me a lot. All right, until next time, I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Now get out there and get your lures wet.